Welcome back to One Round. I'm Darrell Dawsey. We've got my man Greg Bowens here for a second round with us, so we just want to jump in and finish our conversation about the direction of leadership here in the city and where Detroit is going. Greg, we're coming out of King Day. This is, we're actually shooting this on King Day, but this is going to be posted the day after. Martin Luther King, Detroit held a very special place in his heart. Detroit was seen as a city where, quality, qualified, competent, courageous black leadership would rise up, and it certainly did happen. But when we look at the landscape today, I would argue that it's probably vastly different from what King expected it to be. I'm just wondering what are some of your thoughts about where democracy is here in the city of Detroit? Then want to move forward and talk a little bit about where some of these folks are trying to take us financially. There was a big deal made out of the fact that the judge kicked back this swaps deal that Kevin Orr was trying to push forward. So first of all, let's just talk a little bit post King Day about leadership here in the city of Detroit. Where do you think we stand? Where do you think it's going? What are some of your thoughts?
Interestingly enough, a block from here is where Martin Luther King did his first I Have a Dream speech, if you recall, at Central United Methodist Church, and they walked down Woodward. And so it's almost apropos that we're right here talking about this right now, because you're right, Detroit does have a special place in history for that. I think what King does is represents what my teacher says, which is hope is greater than fear.
Absolutely.
And in these times, these uncertain times where King moved from the idea or from the politics of civil rights to the politics of economics and social justice, it's even more important. And it's funny that we're here in Detroit, not funny, haha, but funny, ironic, that we're here in Detroit dealing with many of those same issues, because our political leadership in many ways over the years has not necessarily translated into economic viability for us.
I absolutely agree. And that's one of the reasons why I would argue that the Republicans have been able to come into Detroit and impose the agenda, frankly, that they've been able to impose.
Right.
And part of that agenda has been taking control of Detroit's finances, trying to help Detroit figure its way out of it.
Right.
One of the things that has been done in the name of that was this swaps deal that Kevin Orr tried to broker between the city and the banks. That was just kicked back by Judge Rhodes. He felt that it was insufficient. Just wondering, what are some of your thoughts about what Orr tried to pull? Who's crazy here? Is Orr crazy? Is the judge crazy? He keeps coming back with this idea. What are some of your thoughts about just, that kind of leadership?
Well, part of what's gotten Detroit and other places in trouble is because they have been fleeced by the bond market, borrowing money to pay off old debt. We saw that happen again here with the swaps. Everybody said it was a bad idea, but at the time, the newspapers were like, hooray, it's a great idea. So it happened again. He proposed this thing, let's do a new swap, let's do a new deal, and everybody went, hooray, but the judge said no. So this is the first time that we've seen the judge say, wait a minute, you can't keep doing the same thing that you were doing before and call it new, and it's going to save us. And Kevin Orr is going to have to watch out. I've said it before. They've walked his brother out on a limb, and he's been set up for the okie doke. I think he's going to be out here a lot sooner than October, and not because he's successful.
Okay. Why do you think it is then?
Well, I think it's because
he's been set up to fail.
I think he's been set up to fail. He doesn't have the political support that he needs. You've got Mike Duggan out there, and even the crime, the biggest issue facing Detroit is something that Mike Duggan can't deal with because this guy reports to.
Real quick before we go, should we be going after these banks? One of the things that Rhodes is saying is, what these banks did could be illegal. Maybe you have an obligation to go after them before you start trying to declare bankruptcy, before you start trying to impose these kinds of, restraints on the city. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, my thought is simply this. With many of my clients in the labor movement, we've been talking for a while about reforming the municipal bond market, because from here to San Bernardino, California, and a bunch of places in between, cities and school districts are falling into disrepair because they've been taken advantage of. They've been fleeced in a lot of different ways. The same thing has happened in Detroit. You've got to reform the municipal bond market if you really want to slay the dragon that is causing all these problems. The same kind of thing happened in the housing market. Some people say that was not much of a reform, but it was reform and it gave relief. The same thing needs to happen here.
Okay, great. Well, listen, Greg, thanks, man. I always appreciate having you out here, all right?
Thank you.
This has been Darrell Dawsey. This is One Round. Thanks for joining.